Hello, everyone, and welcome to your Advective weather update on what is now Cyclone Ilsa, which is rapidly approaching Australia at this time. It is intensifying rather quickly at this time, and Australia has finally named it Ilsa after a couple days of it having tropical storm force winds due to their strange requirement of 3 of the 4 quadrants needing those tropical storm force winds. The Joint Typhoon Warning Center currently has this storm with maximum sustained winds of 80 knots or 150 kilometers per hour in 1 minute sustained winds. This lands it as an upper-end Category 1 on the Saffir-Simpson hurricane wind scale. The Bureau of Meteorology in Australia has this storm with winds of 110 kilometers per hour in 10-minute winds, giving it a Category 2 on the Australian scale. Either way, this is starting to become an upper-end cyclone and one who's going to have significant wind impacts. This cyclone is currently expected to peak as a major storm that's a Category 3 or above on both scales, with strong winds, storm surge, and heavy rainfall being threats all around the point of landfall, with rainfall being an especially big threat well inland as well. Well, let's talk about the weather setup for this. You can see Ilsa there on the map. It's going to be on the upper left corner of things. It's that big white blob up there heading in the general direction of Australia. You can see the arrow there denoted by the Bureau of Meteorology. Currently, Ilsa is under favorable conditions for strengthening and should remain the case up until landfall. This means that we could have a rapidly intensifying storm all the way up to landfall. So even if you hear it's a Category 3 or 4 up to 12 hours before landfall, that may not be accurate for the intensity at landfall because it could still be strengthening at that time. Moist air, warm sea surface temperatures, and low wind shear should facilitate rapid intensification, like we said, up until landfall. Therefore, that Category 1 or 2 strength that we were talking about now is likely to get higher up to that major hurricane or cyclone status that we were talking about earlier. Exact details on track and strength are uncertain at this time, so please stay tuned for more updates right here at Advective Weather and also from the Joint Typhoon Warning Center and Bureau of Meteorology to get the best and latest information on what's going on with Cyclone Ilsa. Here's the sea surface temperatures for the storm. You'll notice it's moving into the warmest pockets there of sea surface temperatures around the Australian region, so it's very favorable when it comes to its conditions thermodynamically. So this is going to have lots of energy to work with right up until landfall. You need sea surface temperatures around the yellows in order to really get going. This is well into the reds. So sea surface temperatures of 26 degrees Celsius are the bare minimum. We're going to have 29, 30, maybe even 31 degrees Celsius in some spots with this storm. You'll notice with vertical wind shear here that the storm is starting to finally move out of wind shear that's been plaguing it over the past couple of days, and it's moving into a lower shear pocket that should remain up until landfall. As a result, again, the conditions are beginning to line up for this to rapidly strengthen. And finally, when we take a look at water vapor, you'll notice there that it's creating its own moisture shield, dry air there on the southern half of Australia, but that's being blocked off from the storm by its own venting outflow. So you'll notice there moist air from the storm clashing with that dry air there farther south, preventing it from becoming a problem there for Cyclone Ilsa. Well, let's talk about the official forecast now. The Bureau of Meteorology taking this all the way up to a Category 4 on the Australian scale with a direct landfall around Willow Downs. Places like Partaloo Roadhouse, De Grey, Port Hedland, Marble Bar, Telfer, Parganur, Nollagane, Badaganga, Broome, and Beagle Bay should all be watching this rather closely as you are within a cyclone watch from the Bureau of Meteorology. Warnings will likely be coming out soon, but again, a Category 4 on the Australian scale is the expectation for landfall at this time at some point in the overnight hours between April 13th and April 14th. Here's the second opinion, courtesy of the Joint Typhoon Warning Center. A landfall there up to 130 knots is currently expected there around the same place that's expected by the Bureau of Meteorology. That makes it a Category 4 on the Saffir-Simpson hurricane wind scale. That's 150 miles per hour in 1 minute wind speed. So very strong cyclone, Category 4 expected by both agencies on both of their scales. So again, a major cyclone landfall is the current expectation. This could be a rather high impact storm for the areas that do get hit. Let's talk about some weather models now. This is the GEFS, or the GEFS as we call it, and you'll notice there that the intensity of this storm is definitely outrunning the GEFS. So at this time, we're going to be seeing kind of an intensity curve that's similar to what it's saying. However, because it's already starting higher, it's having to be corrected for that accordingly by the Joint Typhoon Warning Center. You'll also notice there deep layer wind shear. That's going to remain relatively low until we head into April 13th into the 14th. This is going to be around the time of landfall, but wind shear should begin to skyrocket as this begins to move inland. We'll also see on the track forecast there's a bit of spread, but there's relatively high confidence, especially compared to yesterday, and sea surface temperatures are going to remain well above 30 degrees Celsius throughout the rest of this storm's life before hitting land, and relative humidity should remain above 40%, which is going to be more than sufficient for the storm to continue its intensification process. When it comes to the forecast track confidence, here it is in a bit more detail. You'll notice there that the ensembles from the global forecast system take this farther south than the deterministic or actual run that we'd kind of use for forecasting. You'll notice there as well those colors, so those purples, those are where you're in higher confidence for storm impacts. If you're in the yellows, the oranges, the reds, you still need to be weather aware though, as this could head in your direction according to this model at some point. However, the landfall zone is becoming more and more confident with time. Let's talk about precipitation real quick. This is where we're confident precipitation is going to occur, and this is about as much as we can say we're confident in falling. So you'll notice there, along the coast and well inland, we'll see numerous areas getting well over 150 millimeters of rain along the coast, and then as we move inland, we'll have well over 50 millimeters of rain for quite a while. The worst of the impacts shown by this, you can't pay attention to exact location, but you can see the worst of the impacts. You'll notice there, well over 200 millimeters of rain expected in quite a few areas. Let's talk about the wind forecast here real quick for this storm. You'll notice that it's going to strengthen rather rapidly. This is the H-Wharf weather model, and this is what you'll see. You'll see it begins to strengthen rapidly upon landfall with a 155 mile per hour peak currently forecast by this model. A slight sign that we could be seeing a slightly conservative forecast from the Joint Typhoon Warning Center and Bureau of Meteorology, as a very intense cyclone has been expected by models for quite a while now. Here is a satellite view of this. You'll notice there that an eye is expected to pop out before landfall there as this gets larger, before becoming more disheveled and disorganized as it dissipates over Australia. This is pretty typical of cyclones, and we're going to see the same general pattern here, but don't be surprised if the satellite structure of Ilsa looks quite a lot different by our video update tomorrow than it does right now. Here's what you can do if you are within a tropical cyclone watch or warning. Make sure that you are getting moving when a storm threatens, so protect your home, determine sheltering options, get a ready-to-go bag, help your neighbors, and follow evacuation orders if given. During a storm, if you decide not to evacuate, make sure to stay protected by staying in safe places from water and wind, having a way to get weather alerts, keeping in mind that impacts can be felt far from the coast, and listening to local officials. Use caution after storms as well. If you're evacuated, only return if you're told to do so. Remain vigilant as hazards remain, clean up safely, only use generators outdoors well away from homes, and prepare for the likelihood that help and communications may not be available due to the destruction the storm causes. Well, with that being said, thank you so much for watching. I hope you did like the video. If you did, you can hit the like button. You can also subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications if you want more updates as the cyclone approaches. Join our Discord server as well if you want to chat with myself and the rest of the staff team. And be sure to just follow us, generally speaking, across all of our platforms in order to stay up to date with more information. Thank you so much for watching. We hope to see you in the next video tomorrow.